afternoon. My name is Lisa, and today in this presentation I'm going to demonstrate my understanding of child protection and the knowledge and skills that are required in relation to the case study provided. I'll just leave this slide up for you to just have a quick read. There is a wide range of areas in relation to child protection that anyone working with children need to be aware of. These are listed on the next slide, and I will go through some of the main areas. First of all, we have legislation. There are many laws and guidance which are continually being amended, updated and revoked. The Department of Education is responsible for children's services and education, including higher and further education policy, apprenticeships and wider skills in England. It is responsible for child protection and the legislation that underlines the law and the policies and the procedures. The Children Act 1989 was the first new legislation for child protection. It allocates duties to local authorities, parents and other agencies in the UK, and its key principle is to ensure children are safeguarded and their welfare is promoted at all times. Following this, in 2004, the Children's Act was published, which encouraged partnerships for social workers, agencies, schools and families to all work together. Then we had the Equality Act 2010, which was to ensure all children and adults are treated fairly and meant to counter discrimination in the UK. Anyone working with children and all their parents or carers need to make sure that they do not show any prejudice, bias, subjectivity or discrimination. It should not matter that the disability, race, ethnicity or religion is. They should all still be treated fairly and the same. You need to make sure that you remain objective and base any judgment only on the true facts. Social work's core values, there's 6 of them, which are listed on the slide above you. Next we have the policies and procedures, and all staff should be aware of these. This is to make sure that they understand the day-to-day running of the organisation and ensure they provide a safe environment for the children. They show consistency required by staff, and they will protect staff and the children. It is imperative that staff follow them, because if a case had to go to court for whatever reason, you would need to ensure everything is reported accordingly and it could be used in evidence. Each setting will have their own safeguarding policies and procedures, which are usually published on the setting's websites. This shows that organisations is committed to safeguarding the children and keeping them protected. If anybody asks for your safeguarding policy, you should be able to give it to them straight away. All staff should be trained on the policies and procedures, and they should be reviewed yearly. Then we have the theoretical perspectives and modes that inform practice. This is when we can look back on something and learn from mistakes or past experiences. It enables us to work more efficiently. Many policies and legislations have been amended due to past experiences. An example of this is when 7-year-old Maria Colwell was killed by her stepfather in 1973. This case opened up a public discussion that someone could actually intentionally injure or kill a child. In 1974, the public inquiry criticised the lack of communication between the various agencies involved with the family, as Maria was known to be at risk by the authority. From this, the Child Protection Register was established in 1975. This was a national requirement for local authorities to improve contact in these sorts of situations. This case started the development of safeguarding practices as it is today. Many theories have been carried out to try to understand what causes different behaviours and how the government and different organisations can link them to limit it ever happening again, and I can go through some of these later on. The last thing on this list, we have personal values and ethics skills. When working in child protection, you must make sure you respect each and every person, no matter of their individual beliefs and values. You need to be able to remain objective and not show any bias, even though some of the issues you are confronted with will be extremely difficult and uncomfortable. Next, we're going to the action learning on my next slide. This is the COPS learning cycle. And he believed that learning is achieved through experience, the process of reflection, and by taking action. It is important to remember that the learning process will be different for everyone, as it is individual to you, so there is no right way. There is no learning without change. So to be an effective learner, it is important to inquire, listen, and question. Action learning enables you to schedule meetings with your colleagues so that you can all discuss any child protection, policies and procedures, and any discrimination concerns on a regular basis. From these meetings, you can delegate some of the work to others, especially if they have more knowledge of the case or maybe more experience. It is important that the correct member of staff has the correct role. Use the meetings to share ideas or any concerns, and do not be afraid to ask questions if you are unsure. Organisations will have their own templates to use for action plans. It is important that these are used to allocate work and then to keep a track on the actual progress. Talking about child protection action plans, there are 6 processes to the child protection, and the child protection plan is drawn up at step 4 as a result of a child protection conference, if it gets this far. The plan determines the contribution of the different professionals and is a working tool that should enable the family and professionals to understand what is expected of them and what they can expect of others. On this slide, we have an example of a child protection action plan for Emma that is in the case study we were provided with this presentation. An action plan must clearly show the exact nature of the concerns, so everyone has the same information. The plan needs to show who is doing what and when, and to show what they're doing what and when, and we'll track the progress of each action. The example I've used is the RAG report. Some of you may have already be aware of this. Red means the action is overdue, amber is it's going to be completed soon, and then the green being completed. Emma is 4 years old and started day nursery at the age of 9 months when her mother returned to work. As Emma's grandparents lived in the same street as Emma, she sometimes goes to their home after day nursery if the mother is working late. Emma is assigned to a key worker who makes sure that her exercise and physical care needs are met. Emma's key worker has role responsibilities set out by her employer and will include some of the following, like carrying out regular care and routine support, work closely and develop a good relationship with the family, and obviously following the settings, daily policies and procedures. One day, Emma had refused to eat her lunch and had diarrhoea. After the key worker returned from her break, a colleague informed her that Emma had not settled for her sleep and had vomited. The procedure at the nursery for unwell children would be to contact the main person on the file. In this case, the listed person to call was Emma's grandmother, who was contacted, and then she came to collect Emma. The grandmother would be advised to seek a doctor's opinion, as most nurseries follow the rule that children cannot attend a setting for 48 hours following vomiting for the safety of the other children in the setting. Following Emma having to be admitted to hospital for tests, she was found to be suffering from malnutrition. This meant that a district nurse visited the day nursery to discuss Emma's care with the key worker. She was also informed that a social worker would be supporting Emma's family, as there are other issues in the family life. The family agreed to a meeting with all parties, which included the key worker, district nurse and social worker, to discuss Emma's needs and how they could support the family. And this is all here, this is the actions taking place here. When a child protection plan is discussed, the child must attend. However, we know from the case study that Emma did not attend either meeting. Although Emma may seem too young at 4, the plan should be explained to Emma in a language that she understands. This could be by explaining how ill she could possibly get if she does not eat the food provided. However, it is important not to scare her. You will need to encourage Emma that this is best for her, and we are not telling her off. This will be followed up with another meeting to check everything has been put in place and that Emma is making some improvement. Advice was given to the key worker and the family, and they were encouraged to complete a daily food diary for Emma. This will help us to identify if it was a certain food that Emma did not like or may even have an allergy to, which was what was making her sick. A health visitor will be able to offer the nursery and parents a nutritional balanced diet for Emma, and will also be able to put them into contact with a dietitian if required. The health visitor and I will carry out weekly visits to the nursery and to home to ensure Emma's health was improving and be available if the family or key worker had any further questions or concerns about Emma. Documenting all these steps on the Child Protection Action Plan help keep Emma safe, but all parties are able to support Emma's family as well as the key worker. Keeping to scheduled timescales is imperative in keeping Emma safe. The local authority will share this responsibility with the parents, and if they do not, it can result in an application to court for an interim care order if the local authority believes that Emma is at risk, and the Child Protection Action Plan will be used as a piece of evidence that all necessary steps were followed. Next, we're going to go on to the anti-discriminatory practice and the core social work values. And an anti-discriminatory practice is at the core of social work values, and there is no tolerance for any discrimination. You are encouraged to challenge any discriminatory attitudes and behaviours you feel are not justified. Social workers have a key role to play in embedding the Equality Act 2010's anti-discriminatory objectives in practice by improving information collected about and provided to service users. As a social worker, you need to have commitment to promoting social justice as well as respect for all human rights. In today's society, everyone has a right to freedom of thought and expression, and it is hard to control the discrimination we face from this. As social workers, we need to have a clear understanding of the responsibilities that we have, not only to our colleagues but to the children and their families. This should be carried out professionally, in strict confidence, and be able to respect and defend people's dignity. Social workers will encounter many different people in their day-to-day role. They may be young or old, different race, follow a different religion, or have a disability. It is the social worker's responsibility to make sure that person feels the same and not different, and that you work and support them according to their own individual needs and requirements. Social workers must be objective. They will find that they have to make some difficult judgments for some difficult situations, and you would need to be confident enough to make the correct decision based on the evidence you have. Do not show any prejudice or bias. There are different forms of discrimination that you should be aware of, and I have these listed. On this slide here, and then we have we have the direct discrimination, indirect discrimination, associative discrimination, and the prospective discrimination. And we have a little bit of a meaning next to each one of them for you to read. Next, we have the legal and policy frameworks relating to child protection for organisations and individuals to follow, and everyone should work together to promote the welfare of the children and young people. Working together to safeguard children. This most recent piece of legislation is Working Together to Safeguard Children, a guide to interagency working to safeguard and promote the welfare of children, published March 2015. This legislation shows how organisations and individuals should work together to safeguard and promote the welfare of children and young people in accordance with the Children Act 2004. And this is just a brief timeline of some of the acts that come into place. A lot of these that were amended was a result of child abuse or a child death, unfortunately. Next, we have the theoretical perspectives. One common theory is a cycle of abuse theory, which suggests that if a parent was abused themselves as a child, then they are likely to become an abuser. This theory was thought to be revolutionary at the time, however, some thought it was a bit simplistic. To relate this to child protection, this theory showed repeating behaviour through generations can occur when children who are victims of abuse, or if they witness abuse between their parents, have not been taught that this behaviour is incorrect. This theory is classed as one of the most usual reasons for abusive cases, but not all of them. Next, we have the attachment theory, and this is the most studied theory. Bowlby assumed that if the parents were kind and passionate, so will be their children. Relating this theory to child protection was thought that if the child did not form a strong relationship, attachment to the parent in their early beginnings, then they later struggled with a sense of security and unable to trust others as they did not receive the personal development from the parent early on. As a practitioner, social worker, it can be useful if attachment problems are identified early, as this will help intervention, as early intervention can help. Next, we have the social learning model, which most of you will be aware of, is the Bobo doll experiment. When a child witnesses violent, inappropriate behaviour to the Bobo doll, they will actually copy it. Now, an evaluation of this model is that it is believed that a child's negative behaviour can change according to their surroundings and environment. So basically, the children watched adults behaving aggressively to the Bobo doll, and then Bandera witnessed the children mimicking that. So we could change those surroundings and they would mimic something out. Next, we have the environmental stress model, which is also known as the ecological systems theory, and this has 5 levels of influence. And you can see these influences on the slide. We have the microsystem, the mesosystem, the exosystem, and the macrosystem, then the chronosystem. I won't go into full detail, but on your notes you'll be able to understand each of these systems. The systems model is a model to describe that human behaviours, organisations, families are all directly responsible in resolving the problem, even if it appears to be an individual problem. It is good to remember that if you change a part of the system, it could affect the other parts, resulting in change in patterns or behaviour. There are lots of theories and models that have been extensively researched. They give the opportunity of the practitioner to look at children in different ways. Not one model fits all situations. Different circumstances can give different answers. All theories have their own strengths and limitations, so it is recommended that practitioners use a range of theories to help them work with the child in question. Many skills are required when working in child protection, and the Department for Education published a document in 2014 listing the skills and knowledge that anyone wanting to work with children and families should have. And I've listed these on the slide. To work with children and their families, you need to have the relevant qualifications, or at least working towards a recognisable one. You may find yourself in some challenging situations where you need to challenge discriminatory practice or observe abusive outcome, and you will need the courage to deal with this effectively, at the same time as being respectful of the people's needs, values, cultures and differences. Maintaining professionalism at the same time as showing empathy, having confidence that you know the up-to-date legislations, policies, procedures, and being able to make and identify the facts will help you make the correct decision. You need to be able to show a genuine interest in people and show them respect. They do not want to see that you do not care. If you say you are going to do something, do it and keep them informed if you cannot. You need to gain their trust. This leads into that you need to be able to communicate effectively and build empathy. You will need to be able to communicate and explain information to children, young people and adults. Written communication also needs to be legible. It will not look professional if there are many spelling and grammatical errors. Hopefully this gives you a bit of an insight on my understanding in child protection. Do we have any further questions? Thank you very much, and thank you for listening.